I'm constantly documenting any expenses, and then I'm asking the tax strategist to have a meeting tomorrow with my tax strategist saying, can I write this off? Yes or no? Oh, I can write off a percentage? Great, because, they can write off their annual corporate retreats. They can write, there's so many things that can be written off that people just miss because they're only thinking about the basic things. Money can be complicated. Let a nerd help you. We're here to demystify the complex nature of money by getting you answers from financial nerds and whiz kids. Welcome to Ask the Money Nerds, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we answer your most pressing money questions. You asked, I'm about to answer. Stolba unpacked the hell of a question. Really good one with a lot of detail. I think everybody's going to value from this because it's everything from are you choosing the right type of corporation to how to save on tax and how a lot of these things work in a really practical example. So Chief of Staff Stolba, what's up?
Hey, I have a question.
Oh.
What?
Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm having a great day, by the way. That's what you're wondering. The question coming in today.
Well, I already know because we've been filming a bunch of videos and just doing costume changes so people don't think we're doing it on the same day.
Uh-oh. Shh, you just gave our secret away.
Yeah. It's freaking cold outside, I'll tell you that much. Let's go. It
is. There's lots of snow outside. Okay, the question comes in from Wade, and it's about the partnership that he's in with his business. Okay. So he says, I'm in a partnership, an LLP. So let's just stop right there.
Limited liability partnership.
Yeah.
Most people use LLCs, limited liability corporations.
Mm-hmm. What's the distinction between the two?
There's family limited partnerships, limited liability partnerships, general partnerships, and it definitely you'll see that a lot more in like real estate deals where one person's taking on the liability versus investors. Family limited partnerships might be giving your majority of your company to your kids, but you retain the control. So we'll go through the other corporations as well. Like a limited liability company is one of the newer types of corporations out there, invented in Wyoming in the late 70s, really designed for flexibility and for partnerships. You can tax as a partnership. You can shield yourself from the liability of your partner. You can take more income than the other partner, so you have that type of flexibility. One could take more tax deduction than the other. Like you get to kind of choose your own adventure, so to speak, that way, where an S corporation is like an LLC in that it's a pass-through entity, meaning when you earn that income, whether you pull the money out of the company or not, it passes through to you individually and you pay the tax in that year. An S corporation is great when you're an only person that owns a business and you just want to make that a cash cow where you're trying to take as much money as possible. That'll allow you to differentiate your income where you can take some salary when you're operating in the business and some distribution when you're the business owner and have other people supporting you. And that can avoid some self-employment tax by taking distributions. So that's helpful, but an S-Corp could be a disadvantage when you're in a partnership because then there's rigid areas on what your percentages are and what you pay out and how the taxes work. So you see a lot fewer S-Corporations than LLCs with partners, but I think there's a mistake. Some people, they're the only owner, they set up an LLC, and it's not really doing its full job when you're the only person in it. Maybe an S-Corp would be better, or you can tax that LLC as an S-Corp. And then there's C corporations. These were much more popular back in the day. The biggest corporations in the world are typically C corporations. You can retain earnings, so you don't have to pay tax until it's distributed on the personal side. There's a corporate tax on the way in, right? It's a smaller tax, and then there's the distribution that goes to the individual, and there used to be more medical benefits that you can have inside of it. There's the flexibility of having, different class of shares and raising capital, and even a thing called a 1202, which is a way to sell a C corporation tax-free for the first $10 million. So there are some advantages, and one of them is that usually the first $50,000 of income in a C corporation pays less tax than an LLC or an S-Corp. But then that could change as time goes on. So LLC, by far the most popular. S-Corp might be a better choice if you're an individual with no partners, and a C corporation might be great if you just have small startups or if you have investors coming in, or you plan on taking it massively, but kind of that middle of the road, it's usually LLC or S corporation.
Okay, so since Wade is in a partnership, are there any cons to being in a partnership? It sounds like it's just him and one other person.
Well, partnerships are just tough from the standpoint. Someone once told me the only ship that was meant to sink is a partnership. But it's, that's just the dynamics of being in a partnership. And a lot of times people haven't fully articulated in their operating agreement how they want that partnership to work. And so one person does more work than another, or one person has a family issue or gets injured, or you have different philosophies with the business. So that's the biggest risk in a partnership is lack of agreement ahead of time, lack of contractual structure ahead of time. And now you're dealing with interpretation, or now you're dealing with one person that wants something different than another. And then, there could be fighting. So that's the biggest risk you're going to find in a partnership is just the personalities and how they're going to operate together long term.
Yeah. And from it sounds like it's important right out of the gate of a partnership to be really clear with your agreements.
As clear as you can be.
Yeah.
Right? As clear as you can be in the operating agreement inside of the company. Mm-hmm. So how you're going to handle things, everything from voting to, how to deal with, stalemates or issues or compensation or, those kind of things are super helpful. At Wealth Factory, we have a partnership. Mm-hmm. I'm a majority partner, but there's 3 other partners. And, we have production-based compensation. Yes, we all have the same salary. But on distributions, there's certain amounts based upon the percentage of ownership. On production, there's certain ways that we can get paid individually for our specific efforts that impact the bottom line. So that's super helpful, knowing that we have different personalities and different ways that we do business where it's been a very nice, pleasant working environment.
Yeah, because you've outlined that.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to read a little more into his question to give you some background information. Okay. So he's in his 3rd year of business. They do installing electronic security. They're locksmiths. They've shown a profit every year as a business, so that's been a plus. However, the business is new and we continue to purchase work vans and tools and equipment. We are only paying ourselves just enough to live, which is about $24,000 a year. And when the CPA totals everything, he says that they've made roughly $35,000 in their business.
That's the net income after expenses.
That's my guess.
Yep. So that's the taxable amount.
Mm-hmm. My business partner, who is a single dad with few deductions, has been hit with a $9,000 tax bill last year and $12,000 the year before in 2018. Wade personally owns another business and breaks even. He has 2 kids in daycare, a wife that has taken more taxes from her salary from her job. So he feels like those things have helped offset taxes for him. But his business partner is kind of getting hit quite a bit harder than he is. Any advice on why the tax bill is so high?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about $35,000 of income, even if it's 10% tax, that's $3,500, right? Yeah. If it's, if it's 15%, then we're talking about, over, $5,000, So, and it goes up. So, I mean, but you're also dealing with self-employment tax, and that's 15.3%. So just between self-employment tax and normal tax on that, we're seeing there's a decent amount of tax to be paid. So a couple things. If they have any employees, then it might justify that they want to take distributions for some of it, not just all salary. Mm-hmm. And I really think the tax framework that I can outline would be super helpful. 3 pieces. Number 1, you've got to build the right team. So at their stage of their business, just a part-time bookkeeper that they pay to keep the data in order. They got to have a tax strategist. So it sounds like their accountants just tell them, oh, this is what you owe. Mm-hmm. But a tax strategist is someone you're going to talk to, maybe for them 20 minutes a quarter. And they're just going through everything and saying, are we maximizing all of our tax deductions? Mm-hmm. And then the third is a corporate attorney at their level, which is just making sure they've set up the right corporations and classified their income properly. So let's talk about those 2 other categories.
Yeah.
Deductions come down to this. You ask the question, hey, does the expense relate to my business? If so, let's document it and ask the tax strategist if we can write it off. So you could pay your kids and get a tax deduction. If they, he said he has kids, maybe his partner needs more kids, but that could be a modeling fee. That's going to be tax-free income to them that they can control, right? They can use the Augusta rule, which might be a planning strategy session where one of them comes to the other's house and they rent it out to the business. They get to write that off for up to 14 days a year. It's a tax deduction for the business, but they don't have to claim it as personal income, right? So if they just learn how to maximize tax deductions, that'll reduce it a little bit.
Yeah.
But classifying their income is going to make the biggest difference, which is which type of corporation they choose and how they pay themselves. Mm-hmm. So can they take and eliminate some of the self-employment tax by differentiating income, some salary, some distributions? Can they take any of the income and make it more of a capital gain instead of ordinary income? That might lower it, but at their level, that's not going to be the bigger play, right?
Are these all things that they can do with inside their LLP, or do they need to switch business structures?
This is something that they would talk to their corporate attorney about to really understand the ramifications, because it's going to be a very personal thing that I'd have to look at documents. So that's why I gave the general sense of for the different corporations that are out there. But maximizing tax deductions and reclassifying income. Reclassifying income is moving from active to passive, so they don't pay the self-employment tax, which could, on part of the income, which could definitely reduce it. Looking for ways to create tax deductions, and then even tax-free income is kind of a longer-term play where they could look at ways that, if they ever sell the business, is there strategies there? Is there strategies, if they ever do things international, which it doesn't sound like, but I just think that choosing the right corporation, maximizing their tax deductions, and meeting with their tax team every quarter is going to make a big difference. But what I want to be careful and caution them of is not to let the tax tail wag the dog. Don't spend $1 to save 20 cents. Don't spend money thinking, oh, I wouldn't have bought this, but now at least we're not paying taxes, because maybe you didn't create cash flow with that. Maybe you could have invested back in the business, because every time you invest back in the business, that is tax deductible, and you'll lower their taxes if that increases their production, right? Yeah. And then the other thing is, don't just defer tax, because I know that they're, if they're just getting by and it's early on in the business and then just making ends meet, you don't want to tie that up in some retirement plan that you can't touch just in the name of lowering taxes. That's the tax tail wagging the dog.
Got it.
So think fundamentals first, and economics first, and then think about tax ramifications second. But meeting with your team quarterly, having that corporate attorney that knows whether the right corporation, that communicates with the tax strategist. And they can go to wealthfactory.com/tax and get great resources to understand how to do some of these things and, get a better understanding of what's out there. But hopefully this gives them some sense in what the framework is and how to think about it. I'm constantly documenting any expenses. And then I'm asking the tax strategist to have a meeting tomorrow with my tax strategist saying, can I write this off? Yes or no? Oh, I can write off a percentage? Great. Because, they can write off their annual corporate retreats. They can write, there's so many things that can be written off that people just miss because they're only thinking about the basic things. Like if you have a home office, part of your utilities can be written off.
Yeah.
If you have a vehicle and you're driving, like we did an assessment because there's really good tracking with my phone. I'm basically driving here where we're recording to the other office, at Wealth Factory, or I'm at home in Ripwater, doing podcasts like I'm doing tomorrow from there. So my car's pretty much in that vicinity all the time. So we up the amount that we wrote off because we're having those quarterly calls. So you just want to maximize those deductions that are legal and ethical.
Yeah. So one of the things that he was also wondering, since the business is growing and they're needing to buy more equipment, vans and tools and things like that, is it okay for them to go into debt for the equipment? Should they,
Depends
what are
on
some
what
strategies
kind of cash flows
that?
kicked off, right? My concern is going into debt and having that destroy cash flow. So is this equipment going to improve cash flow? Borrowing to get equipment, if it doesn't put them into scarcity, doesn't have them lose sleep, the equipment has a value to it. They know that they're going to increase their cash flow. And that provides a tax benefit, great. But don't do it just for the tax benefit.
Yeah.
Just because you could appreciate that equipment. And there's, maybe there's certain Section 179 deductions that give them a really quick hit of a tax deduction, which is great now. But the next year, maybe that doesn't offset. And if that isn't producing. So it's really got to come down to production first.
Yeah. It sounds like right now they are paying cash for all of their equipment. Is there ever a time when using cash in a business it's maybe not best to, spend $15,000 in cash out of your business to buy new equipment and, getting a loan
when all
would
of
be
a sudden
better?
you have really low amounts of reserves, that's a problem.
So make sure you're liquid
right.
before you're spending your cash on some of these upgrades.
And it's important to know your cost of money. So your cost of money is what can you earn on your cash, right? And that could be for some people just what they have to pay to American Express because they owe, or what they pay for their student loan because of what they owe.
Yeah.
That's what I would call cost of money, because anytime you spend $1, it's not just costing you $1, it's costing you what you are paying on interest because you didn't pay that down. Same from investing. There's always an interest cost, whether we forfeit the right to earn interest by not investing or whether we pay an institution interest. So what if they're charging them 10% to finance equipment? They're best paying cash for that more than likely. What if it's 1%? Well, hey, they could probably do better than 1% in certain savings accounts. So maybe financing, that's good. And some people just think, they're going to biblically slam me here. Oh, if you're in debt. Well, yeah, if you're in debt, you're identifying it wrong. Debt is when you owe more than you have in value. So yes, when the Bible says stay out of debt, I agree. But it didn't say never borrow cash, right? It said stay out of debt. We have to know what debt is. The technical definition of debt is when you owe more than you have an asset. So when people buy a home that's worth twice what they financed, they're not in debt. They're in equity. We're in debt when we owe more than it's worth. That's debt. Stay out of debt. But know what the hell debt is, otherwise you get really confused about it. And be careful. What can you earn versus what do you pay? And there's also risk factors. Maybe I can earn 7% and I only have to pay 4%, but that 7%'s non-guaranteed and it could be volatile. And there's fees associated with it. I lose sleep at night. Maybe it's just best to pay cash. But on the other hand, like what we're in here, I just paid cash for, right? Paid cash. But my house, I finance just because I'm not going to stay there forever. It's a low interest rate. I'm earning more in my cash value of my life insurance. So it's peace of mind and economics. Those are the things to figure out. Okay. Figure out who you are, how it operates. Don't finance just to get a tax deduction. But if it comes with a tax deduction, that's fine. Consider whether it's producing cash flow.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah, the last part was about adopting half a dozen kids and sending them to daycare. I mean, cheaper by the dozen strategy.
Look, man, in my experience is
kids are more expensive.
Whatever tax benefit they provide, it's good that they're cute and I enjoy them. My kids just behaved extraordinarily well being in Guatemala for a week, so I'm very proud of them right now. But man, I wouldn't advise that as a tax strategy.
Yes.
So what we did cover was there's a framework. Give the right data in a timely manner, whether that's a bookkeeper, or a controller if you're a bigger organization, or a CFO if you're an even bigger organization, and meet with a team every quarter. On the team, you want a tax strategist, may or may not be a CPA, but you want them to proactively say, can you write this off in your business? Are these the right deductions? What things don't you know about? Like we talked about the Augusta rule. We talked about, paying your kids, things like that. Writing off a home office. If you have accountants saying, I'm just super conservative, and you're missing deductions, you want legal and within the law, but conservative a lot of times means antiquated. It means lazy. It means you're overpaying tax. And then, you want to have a right corporate attorney. That's a good team so that you choose the right corporations that minimize your drag on your income. So the next thing is you maximize those deductions by asking every expense, does it relate to your business? If it does, you document it and you ask your tax strategist. Then you reclassify your income by choosing the right corporation and how you pay yourself from that corporation to minimize the tax burden, especially self-employment tax. So in this question, we went through multiple ideas to lower the tax burden without having to spend money to do it or without having to defer taxes into the future, which might be a worse situation, but doing real permanent tax reduction strategies without reducing production, which is always the key.